Good morning. Good to be with you. I got up this morning. I asked Alexa, what's it like outside? She said it was 28 degrees. I said, brr. So fall is upon us. The leaves are rapidly falling. And love this time of year. Great. Get to see God's splendor in His creation. Pretty beautiful. This morning, as soon as I get my clicker turned on, thought we'd look at the idea of becoming a Christian and a SME. Now, you're probably going, okay, what's a SME? And, in the military, we like acronyms, right? SME is subject matter expert, is what a SME is. So, I think this is a Bible principle, if you will. We will look at this. The Bible will call it being skilled. But think of it as, how not only excel, but like I say, how do you become a subject matter expert? Somebody approaches you with a Bible question, can you give them a Bible answer? When you're facing life's troubles, are you seasoned? Are you able to apply the scriptures into your everyday lives? And and like I say, we'll be looking at this. Our proof text will come from Hebrews chapter 5, verses 12 through 14. And I'll be reading from the New King James. Now, though by this time you ought to be teachers, and I think we could argue that a teacher is probably a subject matter expert, if you will, or a teacher should at least master the curriculum that they are teaching others. You need someone to teach you again the first principles of the oracles of God, and you have come to need milk and not solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is unskilled. Here's that word, skill. Unskilled in the word of righteousness, for he is like a babe. But solid food belongs to those who are of full age, that is, those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern good and evil. So there comes that exercise. That's applying the scriptures, reading those precepts, and learning to apply them in everyday lives. So the Hebrews had become unskilled in the words of righteousness. Unskilled. They needed to be taught again. When we're at the age of 5, we go to kindergarten. Are we skilled at reading? No. A lot of kindergartners. Some may have parents who taught them to read a little bit, but I'm sure Ben can attest that he spends a large portion of that year teaching them the basics of reading. And then they get in the phonetics, or how do you say that? But they learn the principles for sounding out words so that they may discover new words that they have never read before. And so same thing when it comes to being a Christian. While we may be able to read the scriptures and comprehend the words, are we skilled at applying those precepts? Are we skilled at understanding what the scriptures are trying to tell us? So Christians should want to be skilled as skilled as possible in the New Testament. We do this for lesser matters, i.e. our jobs. Many of us we go off to school, and spend 4 years in advanced schooling to get a bachelor's degree or perhaps even a master's degree. Some people even get what they call PhD. That equates around about 7 years of schooling to become skilled at a particular field, a subject matter expert, if you will, so they might be able to pursue that as a lifelong career. Some others don't go the academic way. They go more into what they call the trades, a trade skill. Where even at a trade skill, maybe it's not learned via a book or by studying, but it's by application, demonstration, and replication, and learning to use the eye-hand coordination to craft whatever thing that you're trying to craft. Woodworkers, bricklayers, electricians, those type of skilled trades, welders, machinists, and the list goes on. But whatever job that and I guarantee you, whatever job you have taken, you've received some type of training. And when you first received that training, you were a novelist at it, correct? But then as time goes on, you become what? More skilled and more skilled and more. And pretty soon, instead of you going and asking the questions, somebody's coming to you asking you the questions of, how do I do this? Now you become a subject matter expert. People are seeking you out on how to execute these things. So we do this in everyday life. Why don't we do it in our spiritual life? And I'm not saying we don't. I'm sure some do. You do, if you do. But if you don't, then are you really living up to your full potential as a Christian? Are you guilty as those mentioned here in Hebrews chapter 5? Failure to become a skilled Christian will result in consequences far greater than what the human mind can comprehend, if you will. And what I mean by that, I don't think we can begin to fathom what hell is going to be like. I don't think we can fathom what eternity is going to be like, because we've never experienced anything like that. Yes, there's some words that try to describe it from a poetic standpoint, if you will. But as you know, until you never really understand the full brevity of a situation until you've experienced it for yourself. So we're going to look at. It takes three basic things to become skilled in any worthwhile endeavor, especially that of Christianity. And that's what we're going to look at here this morning. The first one, and I would say a lot of this is probably going to be common sense, but the first one is that it takes study to become a subject matter expert. You have to study or come to full knowledge of the thing that you are wanting to be a subject matter expert at. 2 Timothy 2:15 says, "Be diligent to present yourself to prove to God, a worker who does not need to be ashamed." A worker that doesn't need to be ashamed is what? A skilled worker, somebody who has mastered their craft. And that's what he said. And the last phrase is, rightly dividing the word of truth. In other words, he can properly administer the scriptures in whatever situation that he's in. So it takes study. It's hard to become a skillful on a 30 to 45 minute sermon per week. In other words, all you do is, as far as your scriptural preparation and become a skilled person, is you come and listen to what I have to say for the 30, 40, 45 minutes, once or twice a week. If that's the case, then can you really say that, I'm a subject matter expert? I would argue probably not. Let's consider Acts chapter 8 and verse 28. It says, was returning and sitting in his chariot and was reading Isaiah the prophet. This is the Ethiopian eunuch. As he traveled along, he was what? Utilizing his time to what? Read, study, and comprehend. Becoming familiar with the text. Acts chapter 17:11 says, "For these were more fair-minded than those in Thessalonica, and that they received the word in all readiness, and searched the scriptures daily to find out whether these things were also. That's speaking of the Bereans. The Bereans heard the word, and then what did they do? They went and confirmed what was being said was accurate and probably fit the context of what was being preached. And then the psalmist tells us that but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and that his law he meditates day and night. The idea of meditating, deep concentration. Now, not humming and sitting there and chanting, closing eyes. That's not meditation. Maybe that's how the Dalai Lama and stuff does it. But that's not what the Scripture's talking about. The Scripture's is talking about, maybe being in quiet and having the Scriptures open and reading and doing deep thought into what the meaning is of what you're taking in. Kind of what the Ethiopian eunuch was doing in his chariot. So it's hard to become skillful with poor study habits. I guarantee you, anybody who's dropped out of college or never went all the way through college or whatever school or whatever curriculum that they did, they probably had poor study habits. It wasn't due to a lack of intelligence, because I believe we all pretty much have the same, close to the same amount of intelligence. Some are more gifted than others, and some are extremely gifted. I'm not extremely gifted, but through enough work, if you apply yourself enough, there's nothing that you cannot do. I guarantee you, there's nothing you can't do. May not be the best at it. That's not what I'm arguing. If you like the game of basketball, then maybe probably the first couple times you shoot the basket, I guarantee you're probably not going to make it, are you? But you do what? You keep trying. You keep trying. And maybe after a month or two, maybe you're able to make 3 out of 10 shots. And then after a month or two, maybe you play for a whole year. And then after a whole year, maybe from the foul line, you can make 8 out of 10 shots. Now, does that mean you're going into the NBA? No. That's not. But that does. But you became more skilled at that game in which you enjoyed doing. So the point is, you got to have good study habits. You have to apply yourself at becoming a subject matter expert. Not merely looking at the words, not just sitting there and, again, that multitasking. A lot of people, I was watching the news and reading the Bible at the same time. Oh, really? You were literally, the mind, like I say, the mind you can't do, you might think you can do, and you can probably capture little pieces of one and the other, but you can't read and then take in at the same, the mind can't process like that. And then, or letting the body, in other words, you don't have any particular, way of studying the Bible. Well, I don't know what I want to study, so let me close. Let's see. I'm going to study Daniel chapter 10 tonight. That type of thing. So you keep on bouncing it all across the way. You're reading the Bible, but are you really reading it in its whole context and getting the whole and the whole? In other words, is there a what's the word I'm looking for? Is there a method to your study habits, if you will? And then passing over unfamiliar words and phrases, like going through the book of Revelations. Well, I don't know what he's referring to by the great white horse. And I'm not going to waste my time in trying to figure that out. I'm just going to keep, that type of thing. Again, that's not becoming skilled in the work. If you're not taking time out to really dive deep into, how are you going to come to full understanding of the revelation of God? We don't just do a cursory review, if you will, and say, I've conquered it. It doesn't work that way. So in order to become a subject matter expert, it takes some study. It's hard to become skilled on passive listening. Maybe we come and we show up to listen to the sermon preached on Sunday morning, but we spend 90% of our time looking out the window, thinking about, oh, well, it's going to be a great day today. I can go fishing here as soon as we're done, and I can go cruising, look at the fall color. In other words, you're daydreaming of what you're going to be doing after church, not focusing in on what's being preached and taught during the sermon. I have here, consider a man who, and this gets into hearing versus listening type thing. A man sat through many sermons without hearing one. In other words, he came to church and he was there to listen to all of them, but he never heard of one. Couldn't tell you what any of them was about. Why? Because he wasn't focused on what was being said. And then it's hard to become skilled in Bible classes that are not Bible classes. Now, I don't think we have that problem here, but that might be of interpretation or of different, but at different places or whatnot. Some people say that many the Bible classes have just become popular psychology in content, if you will. Now, I'm not saying it's good to discover and learn, maybe come to understanding of maybe why some behaviors happen or whatnot, but we still have to apply the scriptures. We still have to study. The purpose of Bible study is to what? Study the Bible. And so that's what we need to be doing. Many stray from the text and that becomes useless as a Bible class, So it takes study. The next principle I think that it takes to become a SME is that it takes experience. It takes experience. Now we're getting into kinematics, We studied, we come to understand, and this is like reading a Chilton's manual. If you ever done any type of car repair or perhaps put something together, you sit there and you read it. Oh yeah, that makes sense. And then you go to do it, and it looks completely foreign. It's like, what were they talking about? How am I going to do this? Well, you need to you got to take that what was read, and now you got to apply it with your hands. And Hebrews 5:14, I think, speaks to this. It says, "But solid food, or those who become skilled in the work, are those who are of full age. That is, those who by reason of use, and there's the key, by reason of use. They studied the scriptures, now they've used it. By reason of use, have their senses exercised to discern good from evil." So it takes exercise. In order to become skilled Christian, those spiritual things that you've learned and discovered, now you have to apply them. So we cannot develop, my animation's messed up, but anyways, cannot develop skill by study alone, if you will. By reason of use, if you look over at James chapter 1, verses 22 through 25. It says, "But be doers of the word," right? What? Actually manifesting what the word says by actually, no kidding, by doing. Not hearers only, or studiers, or readers only, because you're just deceiving yourselves. "For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in the mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a fearful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does." So it's not merely good enough just to read the word. I have to what? I have to apply it. I have to manifest it. I have to live it, breathe it, and do it. If you've ever been in an industry, especially like engineers, you know, a lot of engineers, a lot of guys come out of engineering school thinking, "Oh yeah, I got this," and then they go out there, and then you put them out in the field, and then you tell them, "Okay, I got this problem," and they're like, they're completely lost, like, and then they usually go back to the older, more experienced, what they call the PME, the professional engineer, or the PE, and ask them, "What do I do about this?" They have to learn their task. They have to take all that book knowledge that they acquired, all that theoretical study that they did in college, and now they have to apply it. Now they have the basics to discern that, and they pick it up really quick. But the point is that you can study and study and study and study until you actually apply it, you really haven't done anything, and it's two totally different things. One can know every fact in the Bible and still not be able to apply them correctly. You might be able to quote the Bible, but that doesn't mean you understand what the Bible is saying to you. So we have to exercise it. We have to apply it in our everyday lives. We have to reason through the scriptures. And I tend to believe it's, as with a lot of things, it's like what they call it a perishable skill. Now, everybody probably went to high school, right? And probably most of you had a little bit of algebra at some point in time. And now if I sit up here and put the Pythagorean theorem or something up there like that, everybody would be like, what is that? Well, mathematics is what they call a perishable skill. Mathematics is something that if you don't continue to do it over and over and over and over, now I'm not talking about basics like multiply, division, those things, but advanced mathematics, algebra, pre-calculus, geometry, those type of things, you tend to forget it. It's a perishable skill. You either use it or you forget it. And I think that's the way, a lot of times that's what the scriptures are too. When we study it a lot and you read through it and you refer to it a lot, you become very skilled and you're able to quote it and you're able to refer to it. Baptism, Acts 2:38, 1 Peter 3 and verse 21. You start quoting these things because you've read it and you've applied it and whatnot. But I guarantee you step away from that for a few years, and then somebody goes, "Hey, what was that verse on baptism?" You'd be like, I can't remember. And so it's a perishable skill. That's why when we get through, like we do an expository study, like we've been going through different books, like we went through the Old Testament, the old prophets or whatnot. Do we stop? Do we say, "Well, we studied the Bible"? Do we stop? No. We go back. We do what? We study it again. Or after a few years, maybe we come back to that same book that we was there, and we learn new facts. We things that we understood back then. Now we have a deeper understanding, and it's reapplied in a different light, and we become even more skilled yet. So cannot develop some knowledge without experience, if you will. So we can't. It just doesn't work that way. Consider John chapter 8, verse 31 and 32. Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." But what's the key phrase there? If you abide in my word, you have to exercise it. You have to live it type thing. It did no. Does it do any good to read the Ten Commandments that thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, but then go out and steal and kill? Does it do any good? No. You have to live it. You have to do it. The apostles in their early stages were inexperienced to receive many things. They didn't understand a lot of times what Christ was saying. They hadn't lived it yet. They didn't fully comprehend what he was telling them. Consider John chapter 16:2. It says, they will put you out of the synagogues. Yes, the time is coming that whoever kills you will think that he offers God good service. And that happened, right? But did it happen? Did they understand or comprehend what he was saying? No. But after the day of Pentecost, shortly thereafter, that they were persecuting the Christians, right? And Paul and many of them got beat up in the synagogues for what they were teaching or reasoning. It was probably more like a civil debate, I imagine. And then consider the steps, when it comes to building something. It becomes easier and easier after doing the previous one. You think of it, the first model toy plane, toy car probably took you forever. But then after you do it, it becomes more basic. I know the first time I did a brake job on a car, I had to lay everything out piece by piece, and it seemed like it took forever. Now, 30 minutes later, I'm done. It's like, all right, bring in the next one, type thing. And it's like that with just about everything. The first time you fashion anything, or pick on Jessica. She makes all these things with yarn and these plastic grid. I don't know what you call them, but she, I'm sure. The first one she made, probably took her quite a while to figure it. But now that she's done it several times, she just goes right along, and within a day's time of sitting there, she has a whole new project completed, because you become more and more skilled at that. So probably and it's like that. The first project that you probably ever drafted up or whatnot. It probably took you a long time, but now it's more easy because you know every step that you got to do along the way. So it takes experience to become a subject matter expert. The last one we want to look at is that it takes time. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's not like instant coffee where you just add water and boom, there you go. You got a cup of coffee. It doesn't work that way. Babes in Christ need to recognize this fact, if you will. And why do they need to recognize it? Because they don't want to become discouraged. Why can't I figure this out? Why do I keep, I'm studying the Bible really hard, but I'm still making all these mistakes. Well, you haven't become fully adept, if you will, to the scriptures or to the Christian lifestyle. So you're going to make mistakes, any highly skilled craftsman, when they first start doing something, they make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. But the key, when it comes to making mistakes, the key is that you learn from those mistakes. You don't repeat those mistakes. You break the cycle, if you will. So, after you become a Christian, maybe you resort to some old behaviors. Got it, but then I made a mistake there. But then the next time you face that situation, you're like, last time I did this and made a mistake. This time I'm not going to do that, And pretty soon, after you've lived a few of those situations, you become more seasoned, if you will. So I have here, or they will become, they want to be teachers and leaders, and they want to lead prematurely. Consider James chapter 3, verse 1. It says, "My brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment." The warning here in James is this warning, don't put the horse before the cart before the horse, type thing. You have to be trained. You have to become skilled. In order to be, again, a teacher and leaders are your SMEs, your subject matter experts, or they should be. Because if you're not a subject matter expert, if you don't know not necessarily all the ins and outs, not everybody can know everything, but you know a good majority, therefore, or you end up what? You teach error. You make mistakes in the way that you teach. Or they run a danger because they become offended and their judgment is not followed by older brethren. Again, they come up with great, I got this great idea, and they shoot it out there, and people are like, they're thinking that, well, we did that. We did that. Yeah, we did that 5 years ago. That didn't go very well, type thing. And so then they get discouraged. Well, I'm not even going to bring it up anymore. No, that's the wrong attitude. It takes time. You field your ideas. You discern the things in the scriptures. As you live life and you run into situations, like I say, you're not going to know everything. But you get in the scriptures, you dig through there. Okay, is this how this applies? That type of thing, and then you apply it. And well, maybe it doesn't work out, I could come up with 1,001 scenarios, if you will, but my point is, in order to get that experience that I talked about on the previous slides, it takes time. We got to have time to gain that experience. It just doesn't come automatic. That's like most skilled labor programs have what they call a journeyman program. And it takes X amount of months of working in the field and going to school at evenings to get that journeyman license. Because by the time you get that journeyman license, says that this person has acquired enough skill and enough knowledge that they can now go out and work by themselves. They don't need to have somebody there with them, tending to them 24/7 in order to do that skill. But once you become a journeyman, there's another step to becoming in that growth, if you will. And that's becoming a craftsman. Now, a craftsman is somebody who's exceeded the journeyman level and has probably had 7 to 8, maybe 10 years experience in the field. So now they've done multiple scenarios, multiple applications of that particular that skill set, and now they became what? They became an expert at that task, and they're referred to as craftsmen. Craftsmen earn a higher wage. They often are the supervisors of the journeymen, if you will. And so the same principle applies within the church. We have our laymen, if you will, our patrons, if you will. Maybe they're apprentices, if you will. Some are craftsmen. I mean, some are a journeyman. But then your craftsmen are more of your elders, your let's see it. Throw it out there for me. Your deacons. Your deacons. These people are more. These are men that are more seasoned, if you will. They've been doing this for a while, and especially your elders. Your elders are your subject matter experts. That's who you want to be appointed to your elders. Somebody who's been in the scriptures, has lived the scriptures, and has taught the scriptures for several years. Those are the people that you want to be your leaders, if you will. And so all that takes time. You don't just become a baptized and then next week, I want to be an elder. It doesn't work that way. So we need to, mature in Christ needs to recognize this fact, or become impatient with the mistakes of the young Christians. In other words, don't get frustrated at your babes in Christ because they're making mistakes. And I see that in the Air Force. Now, it wasn't with Christianity, but I remember seeing many supervisors become very frustrated with people who just got out of what we call tech school that didn't know very much, and they come in the office and I just can't. I'm tired of dealing with these basic trainees. They just don't know nothing. They didn't want to take the time to show them the ropes, if you will. They would get frustrated. They wanted to just be able to tell them, go do this, and not be bothered with it. But they needed to get their hands dirty too and work beside them. That it all takes time. So we don't need to become impatient with our new converts, if you will. Don't get impatient with somebody that doesn't. You're sitting in Bible study. Oh, we covered this last week. Well, maybe that it didn't soak in. Maybe they need a little bit more help. Don't get frustrated. That discourages. That tears people down. We got to give them time to get up to your same level. Or pushes them into, or push them into mature roles prematurely. Oh, Jack, he's really engaged with the scriptures, and he's really studying a lot, and maybe we ought to make him an elder, and he gets in over his head, and it becomes a big discouragement to him because he's failing miserably because he wasn't prepared to step into that role, but because you pushed him up into that role. Now, and it can be a very bad situation. So there's a fine line there again. That's where those who are seasoned need to be aware of those things. All must be willing to give time to spiritual development. And again, we talk about our spirituality is a lifelong journey. It never stops. So just because we're 60 or 70 or 80 doesn't mean that we stop our development. Our development does not stop until the day that we transition from this world into the Hadean realm. We are always learning. Every day you're learning something. I guarantee you. Maybe just a little bit, but you're still learning. Too many fill all their time with lesser matters. Well, I've studied again. Remember, perishable skill. Perishable skill. Well, I used to study the Bible a lot, and then I became familiar with, and now you're unfamiliar because you haven't been studying, or you haven't been dedicating time to your spiritual development. And many wonder why their development is not going faster. Maybe they just need more time, more seasoning. Like I say, you haven't lived everything. You haven't experienced everything. It takes time. And people develop at different rates, at different speeds, and to different levels. So, there's no one standard for anybody or everybody. So that's a lesson on becoming a Christian SME, subject matter expert, or a skilled Christian, if you will. So in conclusion, as we wrap things up, remember, it takes all three things to become a subject matter expert. It takes a lot of study, it takes a lot of experience, and it takes a lot of time to accomplish the first two. It's just and there's no shortcut formula. It just takes time. So we need to be patient, but we need to be striving to become that subject matter expert. And remember, you cannot become a Christian SME without first being a Christian, and that leads us into the invitation. The invitation is all about, helping you get along in your journey and becoming a subject matter expert. So if you're here this morning and you're subject to the gospel call, whether to become a Christian for the first time or to call upon the prayers of the congregation, whatever the case may, if you're subject to the gospel in any shape, form, or manner, let it be known as we stand and sing the songs that have been chosen. I have resolved no longer to linger